Good to see you.
Put you to work.
Yeah.
Need water?
I'm good. Thank you.
friends of Lesley coming from who she knew in Sagami-hara, Japan, in Taipei, friends from University of Maryland, her friends and colleagues from work at the Mortgage Bankers Association, and family coming from all over the country to be here. And we're very grateful to all of you for sharing this. So with that, I'm going to ask Josie and Rocco, Allison's nephew and niece, Allison's daughter, Leslie's nephew and niece, to say some words and to do a performance for us.
Hi, I don't know if perhaps you can tell from my voice, I lost my words. I'm still going to be, my singing voice, I'm still going to be speaking. But is that better? Can everyone hear me? Yes? Okay. So we have a really amazing band that's going to be playing music on the way out. And Rocco does have his guitar, so we'll see if perhaps he does want to play on the way out. Maybe? Okay, great. So thank you all for being here also. We are going to start instead with a reading of, I don't know how many people know that Lesley actually was not only an incredible editor, but a phenomenal writer, and I mean creative writing. She wrote poems and short stories, all of which I found after she died when I was going through her things. So today, in the same spirit as it is a celebration, it's also going to be a celebration of Lesley's work. And we're going to read some of her words so you can kind of hear her speaking to you in a new way today. So I'm going to have her nephew-in-law, who she adored, my husband, Hayo, and read one of Lesley's poems. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, upon meeting Lesley, she knew the best chocolate, the best cheese, the best wine, and so I have the privilege to be on the receiving end of a lot of these things. And I'll just tell a little short snippet that her favorite coffee was Equator Coffee, and the headquarters of Equator Coffee are in my hometown in California. And of course, I'm not learned, so I didn't know that that was a really good coffee. So I never had it until I met Lesley, and now Josie and I drink it every morning. And so I'm just going to read a poem from her that she wrote. And then she was really good. Letter to a friend. Although I have asked you to meet me here, I have nothing to say except that which we all know as we write our own deaths. Every soft M dreams I have escaped and said nothing. Every crisp T snaps shut the lid. Characters, we call them, and they people my house with their lean bones. They tease the 5-year-old who thought prayer was the sparks before her eyes when she wrote them. The whole alphabet dances in the leaves outside my window until the trees are bare, no longer themselves. They want news from their letter. I am interrupted here by a word rising up which has no business on the page between us. There, I have fought it back. Instead, I'll tell you a tiny jar 80 years old has been filled with this summer's jam by my dead grandmother's hands. In my own hands are lines I dare not write. Lifeline, the fortune teller calls me, and shows me the line of children cut off, and my own crossing the sea. I am sorry for what I have not said.
So I'm Josie, I'm Leslie's niece. I'm the oldest grandchild, so I was the first, incidentally, last birth that she ever witnessed. Leslie's really special to me, and so I just wanted to share some words that I had to write down because freestyling emotionally is not the way that I will get through this. So, the bad decision was made in 1978. No, 1984. No, 1999. Maybe there was no bad decision. Lesley wrote this in her journal on June 20th, 2012. Every day, the journal prompted her with a question, and for 4 years, sometimes 5, if she remembered, or could find the journal among her books and papers and recipes, she answered the same question 365 days apart. June 20th's prompt was, write the first sentence of your autobiography. Maybe there was no bad decision. I have known Lesley Glasgow Hall since the second I was born. She held my mom, her sister's hand, while Mama gave birth to a 9-pound, 1-ounce baby. Sorry, Mama. Wackles works, he was 10 pounds, 2 ounces. Just for the record. This was the first and last birth she ever witnessed. Lesley was 30 years old when she watched me transition into this world. 30 years later, in a much quieter room, I watched her transition out of this one, me on one side of my mom, Lesley on the other. There is no other way to describe this bond other than sacred. I am who I am because of this bond of women. I am who I am because of my Aunt Lesley, because of the way she loved my mom, because of the way my mom loves her. I am the product of the most beautiful, loyal, fierce, brilliant, hilarious, coffee-obsessed, wine while running, drinking, marathons loving, dog caretaking, book collecting women I will ever know. I'd argue that any of you will ever know. There is immense grief and also pride. I am so proud to be Leslie's, for her to have been mine, and yours, and yours. Lesley is magical. Perhaps you can tell, but I've never written a eulogy. Usually I write poems, which I guess are in some ways tiny little eulogies themselves of some moment or whatever. But Lesley inspired me to do many things, including write. And few things fascinated her more than poetry, chocolate, and death. So of course she would be the reason I gave my first eulogy. She is already the reason for my chocoholism, which, though she loved the word, Les once pointed out to me that it linguistically makes no sense. Chocoholic, meaning what? That we're suffering an addiction to chocohol, she said. But then she'd make double chocolate madeleines or walnut fudge brownies or German chocolate cake, and we'd forget all about language. What I mean to say is that it is an honor, the greatest honor of my life, to be here, to be doing this, to stand before all of you, to stand with all of you, and allow the love we have for Lesley Glasgow Hall to take up all the space in this room. She is here. Do you feel her? You can be skeptical. That's okay. But let me ask you this. How much of Lesley Glasgow Hall have these Sherwood Forest trees seen? Between Les and my mom, Allison, who often declares that trees are her people, and they are, I don't think there's a single Sherwood tree who doesn't know the halls. Yeah, maybe a few because they were unlucky enough to be born into the ravine at 666 Maid Marian and they've been backed into by a Volkswagen bus. Fine, but they still know us. On August 5th, Leslie's journal asked, "What does the word home mean to you?" Leslie's answer never changed. Every year, Sherwood, Sherwood, Sherwood. Sherwood was the most important place in the world to Lesley. How could she not be everywhere here? Maybe there was no bad decision. I'm going to tell you something that Lesley would never admit to. Lesley was the smartest of us. I'll say it again. Lesley was the smartest of us. And the Halls, well, they're a pretty intelligent squad. But Lesley, not only whip smart and endlessly curious, was also deeply humble and so desired to be outside the periphery of attention in larger groups of people that I don't think I ever once heard her correct anyone, even when, and it was often, she knew that what they were saying was missing an important perspective or was just plain factually incorrect. She knew. And those of us who knew her knew she knew. But now, damn it, I want to say it out loud, Lesley would have never centered herself in a conversation, but I have never known a person with such stunning and effortless command of language and information. And I am in a master's program for writing. Everything Lesley did was with fierce loyalty. She loved her people. She showed up for her people. And she protected the people she loved most. Her mother, Mary Jo. Her father, Blair, Buzz. Her beloved brother, Kevin. Lesley was there from the moment each of them got sick until the moment they died. She held them, listened to their breathing, laughed and joked and sobbed and played music and listened to last words, loving them fiercely, deeply, fully present, until the seconds each of them died. But Lesley didn't show up just because someone was sick. She was there, always, loyal, loving, steadfast, strong. What would you like your epitaph to read? Her journal asked on December 1st. She was kind to dogs and old people, wrote Lesley in 2012. She was endlessly curious. Lesley taught herself calligraphy, collected an enormous amount of obituaries, and was forever in pursuit of the perfect chocolate cake. She read and read and read. She saved so many New York Times recipes for gratin potatoes and pureed cauliflower and things to do with silken tofu that it took me a whole day to sort through all the recipes. For real. And there are more, I'm sure. She saved articles on politics, race, religion, basically everything they tell you not to talk about at a dinner party, and she studied them. She saved articles about travel and running and medicine. She took notes, she questioned things, and she was always hungry for more. As a child, Lesley was scared of thunderstorms. She would jump into bed with her big sister Allison, and they would protect each other. They did this until they were teenagers. Really, they did this for decades. When they were teenagers, living in Taipei, Lesley was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. She was 16. Only one person was allowed in the medevac with her. So my mom watched, and her brothers watched as her sister and mother departed for the U.S., as their sister and mother departed for the U.S. in search of a miracle in the form of a new protocol treatment for Lesley's cancer. Lesley Glasgow Hall was a survivor. Lesley Glasgow Hall is a survivor. Maybe there was no bad decision. Perhaps Lesley's desire to be outside of center stage came naturally to her. Perhaps trauma, a near-death experience at the age of 16 forever informed the way she interacted with the world, its people, its trees, its animals. Perhaps both. But what I want you to know is that Lesley, the real Lesley, was fearless. She was funny. She loved her friends. She loved her travel group, the Pirates. Actually, if you want to see how Lesley really was, look for the dog photo at the photo table outside. That day, Lesley and her pirates were on a running and, of course, wine trip in Oregon. At the end of a long day of course, wine tasting, they came across a hazelnut orchard with a sign out front that read, "Drive slow, our dog is very stupid." "Stop the car," yelled Lesley, who proceeded to then get out of the car, get on all fours, and position herself in front of the sign, sticking her tongue out. "Take the picture," she commanded. No one could stop laughing. Lesley's love and loyalty to her family was unmatched. She loved her brother so much. She loved her brother Blair. She loved her brother Todd. And she loved her sister Allison. "Who is your best friend?" her journal asked on May 14th. "Allison, Allison, Allison." Of course, there are others, but there are some names that repeat in her handwriting over and over throughout the years of this journal. Allison, Kevin, Mom, Dad, Corey, Allison, Kevin, Kevin, Mom, Mom, Kevin, Mom, Allison. Besides Sherwood, there is only one other sentiment that repeats in this way, and especially in a case like today, where we're celebrating the life of Lesley. It's something we should talk about. People are not only their accomplishments, their actions. We are also the things we choose not to do. Like we've established, Lesley was loyal. She was committed to her work and her co-workers. I mean, at a work Christmas party, she won tickets to a Florida vacation by winning a Soul Train dancing contest. But Lesley did not love her job. And it's okay to say this. Lesley deserved more. And she was wise and strong, and we can learn from her. Over and over repeated in her journal is this sentiment that she loves her family, and she is unhappy at her job, and she never quit. Yes, maybe there was no mistake. There was no mistake. And also, Lesley was a force. She was an athlete. She was a writer whose words we are here cherishing together today. Lesley Glasgow Hall was a badass, and she could have done anything. And she did so much. But I've read her book, her work, and I've read Pulitzer Prize-winning poets, and Lesley could have gotten one of those things. But those things being a Pulitzer Prize. She was good, great even, at so many things. And though there is no mistake, and there is only life, there is also the power for change. In the name of Lesley Glasgow Hall, who loves you, who believes in you, and who is here in the trees, the birds, the pop of a tennis ball smacking its racket, I am telling you to enjoy every sandwich. Quit your job. Have some chocolate. Have some more. Write that book. Make that art. Love your people. Show up as yourself and don't apologize. Live. Really, truly live. For Lesley. Maybe there are no bad decisions. Thank you. she's written. So Edie.
We're cousins. I did that, Jane. Hi, my name's Emma. I'm one of the nieces. This poem is called About Poetry. Was there ever in your family a case of madness? An aunt, perhaps, who wore the insides of her dresses and spoke as if her thoughts were objects. Imagine, it's Sunday afternoon, at dinner, when she may have politely observed, "My face is a service of white." But watch, her eyes are reckless as they tremble at level of a candle on fire. She cannot even wait to grace, so she tilts her glass at the shadows. The dark wine lifted on a wheel of light. She makes a toast. Testifies. Be singular as a flame. Be soothed. Find yourself reclined by the red glass of an old church. And are you so surprised that her face is a shine above faces of others? Her luminous head leaning across the starless table. And isn't it just like the moon on water, how you take her kiss straight through you, as if you had no skin? Because she knows you, I'll understand her motivation now. As someone leads her from the table, she calls you. Not death itself, but the same thrill of accidents.
Okay, this isn't a poem, but it is a poem. It's a memo. It's on the official USA Today paper. I took a picture of it. I don't think you actually put it with me. But this, Lesley wrote this when she worked at USA Today. March 18th, 1986. To Mike, from Lesley and Kathy. Both of their names are initialed. Read, accidental exposure to cookies. On 3/18/86, at approximately 11:19 a.m., your box of Thin Mints suffered severe package trauma. While walking by your desk, the offending box had to be moved in order to get to the shortbread cookies. As they were lifted by the tab, the fragile paper suddenly tore away, leaving the inner core exposed. In an effort to repair the damages, a pair of scissors accidentally fell on one of the cores, causing the chocolate mint cookies to fall to the floor. As the heat was at an unacceptably high level, we were posed with the major threat of core meltdown. We were left with no other alternative but to dispose of them properly. We hope that you can understand our position.
Another poem. My grandmother's garden. This vision will not be washed away by sleep or by seasons. In a room by the ocean that reeks of lemon and the stems of wilting flowers, two women, you and I, try to reach each other in silence, our last chance. Your huge eyes, your sharp cheekbones, your fine mouth, the bare bones of your beauty are all that are left. Your last and lasting words were spoken to the daylight. They know we're coming. They know we're coming. I said goodbye to the garden you bore and tended in the northern sand. Your orphans bent and splintered, tasting the fruit that transforms the damaged into the blessed. I clutch at the gift you left for me. My feet are forever grounded on the earth.
look back at Lesley's life and her career and think about how she became who she was. First of all, I asked family members and friends, what did Lesley love and what did she hate? So I have a short list here that's not in exactly priority order, but pretty close to it. Number one of what she loved were dogs. Number two was tennis, especially whacking that weird forehand past her brothers at the net or right at her nose if she was particularly bad. And some of the tennis players here know what I mean about that forehand. Lesley loved strong coffee, chocolate. She loved good grammar. She loved Sherwood Forest water. She used to take the water home with her. She loved Indian food. Indeed, she loved exotic spices. She introduced me to turmeric and tarragon and cumin and all these things that she loved to cook with. She loved Motown. She loved the feel of the sun on her skin. She loved Photoshop. You may have seen on her Facebook page the odd things that showed up. She loved sprawling novels, reading books this thick. And she loved travel and adventure and exploration. What did she hate? She hated whiners and complainers. She hated cancer. She hated Alzheimer's. She hated cold weather. She hated stupid drivers. In fact, she hated stupidity of any kind, especially when it came from her brothers. She despised bad line calling. And she loathed certain politicians, who I will not mention. How did Lesley come to these things? Well, as you've heard, and thank you for the reflections, by the time she was 14, Lesley had lived in 3 countries. She lived here, in Japan, and in Taiwan. And then she came back with Hodgkin's lymphoma, came back and was healed here. And this gave her a very special view on the world and what the world was like at age 15. She took that and studied journalism at the University of Maryland. She wrote for the Terran, the campus newspaper. She went to work for USA Today. She edited the Humane Society journal. And then she ended up for over 20 years, 25 years, I think, working for the Mortgage Bankers Association. Initially as an associate editor on the print magazine, then moved into digital, helping to transition to digital production. And she always loved words and meaning, grammar, vocabulary. Bad punctuation made her insane. And so as she came through all of this, her quirkiness would come through, her reserve, and that power that she had with words and ideas. And one of the things that ran through Lesley always was Sherwood Forest. And everywhere she went, she was a Sherwood girl. And the other thing was family. And her name, Glasgow, was very important to her. And we're delighted to have our Glasgow cousins here. Sorry, I thought I'd get through it. And she spent time caring for my mother and my father and my brother. And we spent time together in this hall with them. So I guess the last thing I want to say is that everyone here is very, very special. It was very, very special. Sorry. It was very, very special to Lesley. Thank you all for coming.
You were yay.
Bridget's going to say a few words after.
Oh, great.
It is really difficult to get up here and say words because it's such an emotional time, such a pride in Lesley. But I thought it was really important before I leave Lesley to say a few words. Maybe a few words. I knew Lesley in Taiwan. I was part of her TAS Taipei posse, along with a few others who have shown up today. We matriculated at Taipei American School in the 1970s. Post-Vietnam, the military families who had been safe havened on Taiwan during the war were sent home. And America was just beginning to shift its focus from Taipei to Beijing, as we called it then. We were on the cusp of what was euphemistically and mundanely referred to as derecognition of Taiwan. And the powers that be, like Steve Martin's Theodoric of York. Does everybody know who Theodoric of York is? No? Saturday Night Live. He is a great, I'm short. Theodoric of York, medieval barber, also the town's physician. Everybody comes into him with ailments. He has the same remedy for each one of them, bloodletting. And he says, from Gilda, 2 more pints of blood. He keeps on saying that until Bill Murray comes in. And Bill Murray's been in a horrible accident. And Theodoric says, another 2 pints of blood, Brunegilde. And Bill Murray says, wait, Theodoric, I'm already Bill, I'm already bleeding. And he says, say, who's the barber here anyway? So that is Theodoric. So now we have to shut up. This is the hazard of being a teacher. You tend to interrupt yourself, or at least I do. So, America was just beginning to shift its focus from Taipei to Beijing, as we called it then, and we were on the cusp of what was euphemistically and mundanely referred to as derecognition. So the powers that be, like Steve Martin's Theodoric of York, were bleeding Taiwan of its American military, diplomatic, and other personnel, and the school, anemic and limping, somehow survived as we survived. This little intrigue merely served as background to the important stuff of high school. Not sports, spirit weeks, homecoming courts, carnivals, and dances, but the classes themselves, the real stuff. The chicanery and conspiracies hatched during and between classes. Confidences shared on H-Bay, on the bus, in the snack bar, outside of the roundhouse, by the bell, in rehearsal for plays. These forged a forever friendship, which in the last months of her life crescendoed into a round robin of lengthy texts on politics, family, literature, child rearing, wine, death, food, lots of food, and scouting. On October 21st, Lesley wrote, if only I had bought that Powerball ticket yesterday like I planned. I think that was the $1 billion Powerball ticket. She said, or swung by McDonald's for my first fries in 7 months. I was going to do that too. I had a craving. But instead, I rushed home because I was worried about Scout being alone that long after the day she had before. If I had won Powerball, I could buy myself a McDonald's French fry fryer. It's impossible not to dwell on that. On Monday, November 14th, Lesley wrote, what torture having a phone and an Instagram account. I must have sent Allison 117 food videos this evening. My kingdom for roasted sweet potatoes, butternut squash, and cauliflower on a bed of honey whipped goat cheese, and Greek yogurt with pistachios crumbled on top. Oh my God, that sounds good. I'm still salivating. I am forever in awe of Lesley and the way she led her life and lived her life. Her singular strength, self-assurance, humor, and poise in the face of fortune and foe were formidable. To those who may not have known her well, she may have seemed quiet on the surface, stoic even, but as they say, still waters Beneath the equanimity and stoicism beat an intractable, irresistible heart. To the end, Lesley dictated how she wanted things to go. She knew what she wanted. Before she came home, she texted me and Bridget from Johns Hopkins on Saturday, November 12th. Basically, the same old story. Can't sleep, can't eat, can't do anything for myself. Daydreaming about walking along the river in Sherwood. My world has shrunk pretty significantly. Thither I'll pilot thee, said Emily Dickinson. Just so, Lesley came back to Sherwood and a room in her dad's house with a cherished view of the golf course and clubhouse surrounded by love. Sherwood was her place to be, her foundation, backbone, and beating heart. I look out at all of you, and I feel her presence here in this clubhouse. She is here in the air of the trees, as has been said before, and in all of your faces. She loved and cherished this place so naturally, she is still here. As I've been thinking about Lesley over the last few months, I've also thought a lot about Peanuts and Charlie Brown. Whenever I think of things or I need to go to a comfort place, it's there. And I'm reminded of a strip where Charlie Brown says to Snoopy, goodbyes always make my throat hurt. I need more hellos. With our peripatetic upbringings, we were deeply in the hello and goodbye business. But every time we were uprooted and moved to a new place, my throat never hurt. Goodbyes were just around the corner. Goodbyes were inevitable, and hellos were just always around the corner. I always knew there would be a spirited hello to soothe the rawness of the goodbye. In Taiwan, toward the end of her junior year at PAS, Lesley and I were in rehearsal for a play. It was a British farce called See How They Run. I was Ida, the maid in the vicarage, and Lesley was a small town scold, and Sarapus was Skillet. In the last weeks of rehearsal, Lesley fell ill and was to be medevac home to Maryland the day after opening night. She needed to drop out of the play. If Lesley were panicked and anxious, she never really showed it. When you're 17 and imaginative and impressionable, disquiet and apprehension naturally give way to adventure and freedom. And thinking of myself, I would have regretted not performing. But I think she was only thinking free at last, free of high school, going home. And that is how I now imagine Lesley, sadly not here with us, but here, free, showing her true blazing colors, and at last walking down along the river at Sherwood, walking through Cornwall with Doc Martin and Ross Bolton, walking home. My throat hurts, but I am hoping that her dreams are waiting for her, and that her Thanksgiving reverie of roasted sweet potatoes, butternut squash, and cauliflower on a bed of honey whipped goat cheese, and Greek yogurt and pistachios crumbled on top has been seeded. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Bridget, and I really don't want to be here. I made myself come because I thought if I come here, my brain can then process that Leslie's not going to text me again, or call me, or do any different things. We said we were leaving. As we stand here, I think a lot of the Sherwood people must just have these great memories of this room. The first kiss, the first dance, the first this. But for me, it's another tragedy for the halls. And this one really hurts. I can't call Lesley when I get home and talk to her about it, because. Anyway, so I first met Lesley in high school and we became fast friends. And for those of you that know her as the roughly introverted, beautiful, full of grace, I still remember her as a snarky teenager that we were. We had nicknames for everybody, and we were like all teenagers, smarter than everyone. Most especially the teachers. We were so much smarter than teachers. When they would intercept our notes, we didn't even care. You know, like the smartphones back then. But I mean, they weren't for the teachers. You know, we were discussing things. And as you all now know, and many of you already know, Lesley is the great communicator. So when she didn't graduate with me, she left early. She wrote these letters that I'm sure you got too. I mean, they were like 5 pages, back to front, and when I moved 7 years ago, I found some with a lot of them. So I was screenshotting and texting them to Lesley, and just, I don't know, things about eating a mean. She'd write, "Dear Drosophila," that's one of her nicknames for me. And they were the most crazy things. And I text her and go, "You know, Lesley, as long as these are in my possession, you will never be president." But I met up with her. I came here after I graduated from high school, and she was going off to University of Maryland, and I was going to Denison, Ohio, whatever. And she introduced someone that was going also to Denison. And we had a great time. But our parents sort of sent us to college, and parents back then were just like, "See ya." And so we had no money and no way to communicate, so we devised this great plan of Valerie Prescott. So I would call her dorm, she'd call mine, and I forget who was Valerie Prescott, or is it a third party, but we did this for 4 years and never paid for any of the money. I really don't know how we did it. I think it was a collect call from Valerie, or I was trying to remember this toward the end to try to ask her if it was one of them. How did we do it? So we stayed in touch all through college and such, and then afterwards we both had jobs in D.C. And they were jobs, they were not careers, they were our jobs, they were how we did it. So we had lunches and happy hours and things that I didn't realize the halls had a Eastern Market connection. We did that, and always politics and prose. And I didn't get to go to the last one, but she bought us books and had you sign them. And we did so many politics and prose. Hillary, anyway. So we're not going to be doing that anymore. But I did have her, toward the last 2 years, start going to these things at our friend's house, Michelle, these little mini type of American school readings. The first couple of years, like once my husband went, he goes, "Okay, that's enough." And then I tried to get Lesley to go, and she goes, "No." Finally, I got her to go. We go, she kind of comes from Virginia to Maryland to my house, do a lot of pre-gaming. Then we go to my mom's house. Still haven't made it there yet. And I noticed the other day I was missing Lesley, and I looked at her Instagram. If you go all the way down, she's got pictures of my mom's house down there this week. She went down, took pictures of the wedding bed and all this Chinese stuff that night. I didn't even know that. So we ended up at this type of American school thing, and I think that's where, it's where we rekindled, luckily, with Francie. And she picked up text messages, whatever. And so then that went on a while, and we got together a lot then, and we got through a lot through texting. So there was a lot of ranting. Francie, Lesley, and I got through a lot of politics with that crazy period. I think we saved each other a lot of money in therapy. And then we got through COVID, through a lot of that. I'm the 13-year-old texter. No punctuation, no, don't spell the words out. And I'm texting with the AP English teacher and the wordsmith, the grandmaster of communication. And I always felt so bad because I clicked something from Lesley, and my whole phone would it would be like an essay. It's not a text. And then you'd scroll 3 pages down. I mean, it was amazing. But we got through that, and she was supposed to start her life now. This was, she got rid of the borders, she got rid of all responsibilities. I'm not word for sure where she was with her job, but now was when she was going to start her life and do what she wanted to do. She was moving to be in her favorite home with Allison, drinking wine every night, after a hard day of working on her book. And when she wrote me that last text to us, I was stunned, I understood, but I wasn't able to communicate with her because it's obvious she didn't want communication. So I decided to start a portrait of Lesley that was going to make it great. So I did a quick portrait. I go to work on it the next day, and Allison writes that Lesley's gone. So the portrait is unfinished, just the way Lesley is. To me, Lesley is unfinished because she had 30 more years for her life to go forward and do what she wanted to do, which is write books, all the things in her head that we all know. She was going to have the time and the place with who she wanted to be with. I was going to come visit her. And I can actually see Lesley back there with that snarky smile looking at me going, please sit down.
I have an incredible amount of admiration for my aunt. There's multiple times where I find myself in the kitchen and watch her go so intensely from one task to the other, whether it be the multiple games of Scrabble she's had on her iPad going to making homemade almond milk to then getting just such detailed stories about whatever event was occurring in her life. There's a lot of memories that I have with my aunt, and all of them kind of go through threads of how she lived her life and lots of details, and then there's observations. There was times in 7th grade where I remember going through some hard mental times with her. She would be one of the very first people to ask me if I was okay. She never pushed for answers, but it was her way of telling me that she knows and she cares. There was times where, when I was living in Sherwood, that I had school assignments and she would read my essays, like she would find them in the printer and like she would get the printer going and want to read like the essays I wanted and or wrote, and then with her little side, her very signature side grin, would tell me how much it meant to her to be able to read any writing. My sister and I, my sister unfortunately wasn't able to make it, used to also watch my Aunt Allison and my Aunt Lesley just pee themselves with laughter in the living room. Found some stories for each other, sharing glasses of wine, and they were role models to my sister and I. We often, Grace and I, would talk about how we wanted our relationship to be like that. Just the magnitude and the depth of their bond, and seeing that was incredible to be around. We often talk, my sister and I often talk about a future where we would both be my Aunt Lesley and my Aunt Allison, and we'd somehow find a place, live together at a time, as we so desperately hope to be the case for both my Aunt Allison and Lesley. In the last 2 years, my aunt and I would exchange sporadically emails with each other, and there was a time where I wrote to her about the uncertainty of the direction of my life, and even though I was applying to law school, I still felt unclear, and I would like to share the email that she responded. and a lead. Few people figure out what they want to do in their lives, and it clicks. Most find themselves pushed in one direction or another, bobbing on a fast-flowing creek or a super slow creek. I know a lot of people who are like eggs that rolled onto free-form cardboard boxes that have been kept open for them their entire lives. They didn't allow the uncertainty of being a human. They didn't get enough opportunities to fall down. There are so many different stories out there. Don't do too much navel gazing. Do what you enjoy. Earn just enough money that enables you to have adventures while you're young enough not to have a lot of other responsibilities. Screw what other people think. Grab all the fun you can. There will be plenty of time in your 40s and 50s and beyond to sit behind a desk or talk on the phone all day and tap away on a keyboard from sunup to sundown. Don't waste your time if you feel like a step you take in one direction is not for you. Make mistakes, fix them, do them again, fix them again. Climb up a different path the second or third time. Remember that you're never too young or too old to do the correct course. Grandma Rucker, Dad's mother, had a framed Desserata in her kitchen that I'd love to read every time I was at her house. I always wondered how it stayed so clean when there was so much grease in her kitchen. Somehow it ended up in the kitchen in Sherwood before it was remodeled in 1991. I loved to read it every time I was there. When I was packing to move up to Germany when I was 30, Mom gave it to me. I still have it and enjoy reading it still. I'll send you a photo of it in a bit. Keep me posted on your big adventures, big and small. Do stuff, don't get caught. For those of you interested, I printed out that Desserata that Lesley referred to, and I will put it out.
Thank you so much, and thank you everybody, everyone for being here. I wanted to, on behalf of my mama and also Blair and Todd, just say an extra thank you, especially to the Pirates who were here for my mom, and to Kathy, and the Sherwood people, the Sherwood community who have always been here for the halls. Thank you for every one of you for being here today. It makes me just feel a lot of joy to see how many people Lesley is still carried around with. So we are going to party now. On the way out, there are postcards that Lesley had that are unfilled out. So we're going to ask that if you want to, please fill out a postcard with a memory of Lesley. There's a table for that. Also, the most important thing is that there are shots of limoncello that are going to be passed out. Lesley loved a good limoncello. And so I would love for all of us to get our shot and just kind of wait for the last, if that's possible, if you could hang on for a second. So I just want to yell like to Lesley, before we all do it together. So that's all. Yes, thank you. Party.